Hey everybody, it's Patch Notes time again. I'm here today with Patch Notes 2.3c, bringing you the rundown, giving you the knowledge, giving you the know-how to know what to expect coming into the latest Wild Rift patch. Let's just get straight into it, shall we? So, patch 2.3c, you're at the last balance patch of the 2.3 cycle, and there's a chill in the air. Runeterra is facing almost certain doom, and with only a select few have the power to push it back once and for all. Stay safe and don't forget to take the Oath of Light if you want to assist as a true sentinel. In the meantime, we got some high octane studying to do at the Durandal Academy. Patch 2.4 arrives at the end of the month. Welcome to patch 2.3c. Pretty small patch this time, not too much going on. Let's get started with the skins. Battle Academia line is coming. Big fan of the Ezreal skin for this one. I think the Graves is a really cool look as well, but who plays Graves, let's be honest. But the Ezreal skin has really cool sound effects. Big fan of it for PC. Definitely recommend checking it out if you're an Ezreal player. Accessories coming. We got the Sentinel emotes. I think these got leaked actually a while ago. I remember Skin Spotlights, I think, posting about them. It was really funny because everybody thought this second one was like Karma, I think. Everyone was like, who the hell is that? Because we hadn't seen the Sentinel skins yet, right? They haven't announced any of that line, but the emotes were in like an earlier cycle of the patch. And we were like, is that Karma coming? What the hell's going on? Obviously, it's now Aurelia. We all know that. But we didn't have the Sentinel skins of the line, so Sentinel skins at the time. So no one had any idea. Pretty funny though. Well, there's Bauble coming for the Sentinel line, and also this recall for the Battle Academia and the Battle Academia emotes. I think this recall looks pretty cool. I'm actually a big fan of the paid recalls they put out. I think those look pretty good actually. And they look pretty cheap as well. I think they always have pretty cool effects. So excited to see another one. Champion changes. Amumu's early game is nothing to be sad about, taking a small chunk out of his survivability. Base armor getting lowered by 5. I guess this is kind of like the Rammus change from last patch. Amumu's just smurfing it down in bronze, I suppose. I've never seen Amumu in high elo. Pretty big nerf to his early game clear. I imagine he would definitely be taking more damage, and also he's pretty weak at early game in general. Not a great duelist, typically gets invaded a lot to try and deny him getting from level 5, or he can like gank and have like skirmish value. So definitely a pretty big nerf to his early game strength. Pretty weird to see. Like I say, I don't really see him in high elo, but I'm assuming his stats are just too high in lower elo probably. Braum's unparalleled frontline ability make him one of the top picks in the support position. These changes are geared towards reducing his damage and giving him a bit more vulnerability over the course of a fight. Bug fix on concussive blows, 1.56 to 1.5, not really a big deal. Winter's bite % HP damage getting lowered, and unbreakable duration getting reduced. I think the unbreakable duration is the biggest change here for sure. This is kind of like one of those changes where it's like the classic, this is going to separate the good Braums from the great Braums. Unbreakable usage is now going to be way more timely. You have to be more solid on when you pull it out, bring up the shield, because it's a much shorter duration. Not much shorter, but you know, it is like 20% shorter. So you do have to be a little bit tighter with when you use it. Think about more about what abilities you want to block, rather than just having this shield up for like, you know, the entire team fight, which I think is a pretty good change. Braum has been a really solid support, especially in the European competitive scene. Been a top pick all the time. Obviously, the Seraphine Sona thing has come out recently kind of as a pseudo counter, but he's still a really solid choice, and there's a reason that, you know, people had to come, or, you know, teams had to come up with specific counter strategies to deal with Braum. So definitely still good to see him take it down a bit. I like these nerfs as well, where it's more like aiming at his utility, kind of increasing on his weaknesses as opposed to like just nerfing his strengths, you know, bringing down concussive blows, stun duration again or something, right? Instead, they're hitting some of his other aspects that are a bit like kind of his utility and his additional like bonuses, as opposed to just hitting his raw strengths and be like, you stun less now, which I think is always a good way to nerf champions. So I'd like to see this direction. Evelyn's supremacy continues to reign. Her passive recovery and instant damage make her a constant threat, so we're giving her enemies some breathing room. Reducing the heal ratio on Demon Shade. This is what triggers when you get lowered HP, and it restores you to, I think it's about 30%. And the damage AP ratio against low health champions being nerfed by 0.2. This seems kind of like a useless nerf to me. I feel like if they're within the execute range, you're probably going to kill them anyway. I don't feel like 0.2 AP is going to make a massive difference in most of those kill scenarios. So this doesn't really feel like it'll do that much. This might feel a little bit more substantial. It would delay that kind of like, you know how Evelynn like goes in a team fight, gets a pick, gets chunked out, falls back, goes into stealth, comes back in after she regens a bit. It will kind of delay that cycle a bit, which is what they say they want to hit here. So I guess it makes sense, but it's just weird to me. Like, I feel kind of bad for Evelynn as a champion, kind of. It just feels like, you know, I get why they call it like control wards. I think adding control wards to the game would be really miserable, especially in team play, because it'd be so easy to just kind of get ahead, drop down control wards that never die, even if it's like your trinket slot. Just throwing down vision that the enemy cannot clear and it won't time out is really impressive, even if it is kind of like that answer to like champions like Evelynn. So I get why that can't happen within like the mechanics and the confines of Wild Rift, but I do feel like it's just kind of this position where I guess her numbers are just still too high in solo queue. I don't really see her in high elo much anymore, to be honest, since like the 2 nerf cycles ago, where they took down some of her damage, and then they removed like her utility on objectives, right? But I just feel like they keep hitting her because her stats are just too high. But it just feels like the problem is just that the champion doesn't fit in the game, you know? I don't know what the answer to that is, because like I said, within like the confines and the mechanics, I don't think control wards make any sense. So it's tough to know what I think they could do, and it feels like they're just gonna keep dead horse slapping Evelynn until, you know, just beating her until she just literally isn't played anymore, which is kind of sad. But I don't know what the other option is, to be honest. It just feels like the champ doesn't fit within the rules of Wild Rift very well. So there's no real like great answer other than making her really weak, and if she snowballs, it's because the enemy made a bunch of mistakes, you know, because she's just so bad or something. I don't know. Kind of an unfortunate place for Evelynn, I think, but it does suck to see her getting nerfed every patch, especially when I feel like she's already not that good anymore. Ezreal's too slippery in the early games, so adding a little more downtime to his primary escape tool. Arcane Shift up 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, 0. Ranks 1 through 4. Pretty substantial nerf to his early game, I'd say. Obviously, he does reduce the cooldown of his Arcane Shift with Mystic Shot, but the cooldown is already kind of taking that into regard, so making it longer is definitely a pretty big deal. Even for his trading, it can be pretty relevant. Like getting 2 Arcane Shifts off in an elongated trade could be a big damage swing. Traditionally, obviously, he uses that like 2 into 3 combo in his lane phase, so obviously wanting to Arcane Shift quite aggressively, and having it on a longer cooldown makes that more dangerous. So you have to be more aware of like the enemy jungler's positioning, the supports tools that they can use to get on you. Just adds a little more skill flair, I guess, to Ezreal's early game. Kind of interesting for me personally to see Ezreal getting nerfed before Kai'Sa is. I feel like Kai'Sa's just been really solid, best ADC for like patches to patches to patches. I think everybody was like a bit weird on that kind of like the patch where they nerfed Blade. I think that's the patch where they reworked Muramana at the same time. And Ezreal felt really good that patch, and everyone was kind of iffy about Kai'Sa. But then they found that new Kai'Sa build that got the QL evolved really early again, and then suddenly she shoots up to be like really good again, and she's been like the best AD ever since. Fits way more comps, does way more damage, I feel like, is way safer. Just it feels like Kai'Sa's just way better. I don't know, like literally, I would say way better. So it's weird to see Ezreal getting hit first. Even if it's not a massive nerf, it just does feel like a fairly reasonable nerf. It kind of makes me think that because of the upcoming 2.4 patch, where they're already teasing that they're reworking maybe ADC items, I think, maybe Kai'Sa is affected quite heavily by those changes. So maybe they're delaying nerfs to Kai'Sa until they see how she responds to like the new item ecosystem. That would be my assumption as to why Ezreal's getting hit here, because it's a little bit easier to nerf Ezreal, where he's probably going to be building very similarly, even post like an item rework. Whereas Kai'Sa's build might change quite dramatically and would affect how she sits in the game. So that might be what they're looking at here. Fiora is slightly overperforming, so we're nudging down her base health. This should give her slightly less room for error in her early duels. Base health reduced by 40. Well, I can't believe Fiora's getting nerfed, first of all. Am I living in a parallel universe? Pretty crazy to actually see them hit Fiora. Definitely been a super strong pick, both solo queue and competitive for pretty much the entirety of the game, as far as I can remember. What I would say is that this nerf, while it is a little bit substantial, I feel like it doesn't really hit kind of the issues that Fiora has. When I think about Fiora, I feel like a parallel kind of to how Akali was within Wild Rift. And I guess in PC, I don't know what's different about Fiora in PC really that makes her quite different, but at least with Fiora in Wild Rift is very similar to Akali, where she is this kind of like this fantasy of being this mid-late game duelist slash assassin, right? Not entirely like an assassin, more of a duelist than Akali is, but they both kind of have like a similar trend. But Akali's issue is she has this really strong bullying early game. Well, who does that remind you of? That reminds me of Fiora. Fiora's first ability is pretty cracked for laning, very hard to take either a short trade because she kind of could just jump, poke you, and dash out. You know, and then she can get like the grass proc, and it's very hard to take a long trade because every time she hits you with it, it reduces the cooldown dramatically, and she can just keep, you know, taking this elongated trade and pretty much bully anybody. The other issue is that her riposte has a very short cooldown. Even in the early game, it feels like she can pull it out every, you know, second trade, third trade maybe. Makes it very hard to put damage back into her, and she's already winning without even really using it. So I feel like those are kind of the two main issues. I feel like they really need to kind of like rethink Fiora's identity, kind of like they did with Akali, and be like maybe focusing more on hitting how her early game plays out, the way her cooldowns are reduced, something about parry. I don't know, it just feels like Fiora is exactly the same issue that Akali was, where she's insane mid-late game, right? Has crazy scaling, mainly due to the nature of like her true damage ultimate, means that she can literally beat anybody in 1v1, very often can 1v2, 1v3 if she's ahead enough. Not particularly difficult at all to make those happen because she has so many tools to like outplay opponents, and they have to like jump through so many hoops just to take her down, that I think they really need to rethink how she is balanced throughout the game, because it feels like she has no real weak phases. She's kind of just either she's beating everybody early, and then as long as she's matching everybody in items, she pretty much wins every lane anyway, you know? You have to outplay her so much harder than she has to outplay you a lot of the time, because she has so many tools to win these duels, right? Whereas other champions just don't. So I do think they need to take an Akali
line of thinking with her. This nerf will probably help, but I don't feel like there's many scenarios where it's like, oh, Fiora won that duel and she barely lived on 40 HP. Like, that's like the moment it will be relevant, right? When she would have barely lived, now she won't. But you have to think is how often is that happening? Because normally her lane phase is just so dominant and so she's just beating all these other champions so easily that I don't think she's getting to 40 HP and barely clutching unless she's like doing some insane play anyway, right? So while it is a hit, I don't think it'll be super substantial, and I think Fiora will still be really good. Janna's last round of nerfs did a good job knocking her off her windy throne, but she needs another bonk to her movement speed. She'll still be able to use Zephyr to harass her opponents, but she won't be zipping around as quickly to do so. Bonus movement speed while on cooldown from 6 to 15 to 6 to 12. I didn't know Janna got bonus move speed. I thought it was she got bonus move speed while she was holding it. Maybe that's what that means, like while she's not using it. Yeah, this is just weirdly phrased. I don't really get it. I thought she got the bonus move speed while it wasn't on cooldown. Like she's holding the bird and then she has bonus move speed, but maybe she gets bonus move speed when she throws the bird. Either way, not a substantial change. Don't think it will affect Janna that much. This seems pretty useless to be honest. Leona. We wish all Leonas a very pleasant morning. She's still climbing the buff mountain. We're targeting her tankiness and passive this time. Passive base damage 33 to 145 to 34 to 160. Definitely more of a scaling buff to the passive then. The later numbers will be a bit higher. But then 10, 15, 20, 25 armor and magic resistance on Eclipse. This is super substantial for Leona, honestly, especially because you normally max Eclipse. This means at max rank, you'll be way tankier than you were before while it's active, and she's already pretty damn tanky while it's active. This could finally be the buff that puts Leona into the limelight. I don't know, I feel like Leona's like one of those champions. The same thing happens with Pantheon, right? Where they just keep buffing them because they want them to be relevant in the game, I guess, and there's just nobody plays them. I don't know, I feel like Leona's always been in a pretty decent spot. Even from her initial edition, honestly, I feel like she wasn't that bad. I always see like every patch, there's like, you know, 1 or 2 players just playing a lot of Leona, and it doesn't ever look terrible. I feel like she doesn't look that bad at all, really. Maybe people just aren't experimenting with her enough. Maybe this would be the buff that she finally needs to make people take interest in her. Because I do feel like the champ has always been relatively solid, to be honest. I've always liked how she plays. I think she's a really cool champion as well in the meta. You know, very aggressive, lots of flair with the ultimate and how you use it. Can like start these skirmishes and engages. I think she's a good champ to have around, so I would like to see her like slide into the meta a little bit more. But for whatever reason, she's still not getting played. So maybe this will be the change that she needs. Rakan. Rakan's short poke range means he struggles if he falls behind in the laning phase. He's getting a small range buff on his main poke and heal utility. +1 range every rank at Gleaming Quill. This is cool. I do definitely feel like the range is a bit short, especially because you traditionally match this ability either 2nd or 3rd. I think normally 3rd, to be honest, but it definitely feels like it's really short range in the early game if you don't put any points into it. So nice to see that it's getting a bit of a buff in that regard. Pretty cool just to see. Yeah, I think it's just a nice quality of life change for Rakan. Won't make him drastically better, but it would give him a little bit more options, especially when it comes to like healing his ally in the early stages of the lane phase. Sona. Sona has been topping the charts with a consistent pressure and utility. We don't want to impact Sona's ability to deal and prevent damage, but we do want to tone down her engage and disengage tools. If you could pressure Sona into using Song of Celerity in lane, she should take a harder hit. A little bit of a mana increase on Song of Celerity. I think this is a cool change. Like I said with Braum, where instead of targeting their strengths, you hit their weaknesses, right? You hit some of their utility, you hit some of their other things, rather than focusing on what makes them good, you kind of nerf the weaknesses, make them a little bit more prevalent, right? So this is increasing the mana cost of Song of Celerity. I do wonder if this is like a competitive focused nerf, because I don't see Sona very much in solo queue, and when I do, she's not super successful, but in comp play, she's been pretty good, especially in Europe. So maybe that's kind of the change they're looking for in that regard, trying to make her a little bit weaker in competitive, but either way, just a nice, yeah, like, you know, increasing on her weaknesses. If you're able to force Sona into like using this defensively, or if she's using it poorly to engage, she'll be using a lot more mana in the early game, and it'll make her a little bit weaker lane phase wise. So, you know, pretty solid change. Don't think it will change too much, but I like the thought process behind it. Scoundrel just sent me a message about him seeing me in the patch notes again too. We're always doing our patch notes at the same time, and we're so in sync. Haha. Anyway, items. Bramble Vest. Bramble Vest and Thornmail are overperforming as rush items. They should ideally have a specialized role, and instead of the best, go to early armor item generally. Thorn's damage ratio getting reduced by 2% bonus armor, and they're also increasing the combined cost of Thornmail by 100. This justification seems really weird to me, because I feel like the reason that Bramble Vest and Thornmail are the rush items for armor is because they're the only general armor items there are. I guess Dead Man's Plate is kind of an option, but I don't really know what else you're gonna go for early game. Like, Bramble Vest is the standard, you know, choice if you're an AD bruiser top and you're against you know, or like a tank top, and you're against an AD top laner and an AD jungler, and, you know, they get affected by grievous wounds, obviously Bramble's the go-to choice. So it seems weird to me that they're like hitting these items because they're too good as general items, but there's no other general items to go, right? Like, Randuin's very specific, only particularly good against crit focus comps, you know, Fiora, Yasuo, heavy ADC comps. Obviously Randuin's a bit better in that regard, but, you know, it's way more specific. Anyway, Frozen Heart, attack speed reduction, pretty specific. You need to be able to get mana value out of your kit. A lot of, you know, bruisers and tanks don't really care about that much, especially not enough to like build a whole item dedicated to it, especially early. So I guess it's, you know, what else are you really gonna build? I guess is my question. I don't know what they want you to go for here, because this doesn't feel like it's like, these items are too general, we're gonna specialize them a bit. It just feels like these items are too general. You're still gonna build them, but they're gonna feel worse. Just a bit of a strange justification to me. If they felt like Thornmail and Bramble were too strong, they could have said that, but it doesn't really feel like these changes push them into a specialized role, you know? I don't feel like that's what this accomplished. It just feels like they nerfed the items, which will still be the go-to choice. So, a little bit strange, in my opinion, but, you know, I guess that's how they feel about it. Frozen Heart getting an attack speed reduction or an increase, but still, you know, it's just not a very... It's not an item a lot of these champions want, you know? Like, Renekton is an example, you know, he just gets no mana, so he's always going to go for, like, the Bramble Vest or something if he wants a tank option. You know, maybe Malphite want a Frozen Heart, but he doesn't really want to rush it, you know? It's just weird, I think. This justification is weird. I don't think it will make a huge change to the game, but I don't know what they're trying to accomplish with these specific changes, you know? I don't feel like anybody's gonna build anything else, because there isn't really anything else to build. You know, I don't think anybody's particularly rushing Thornmail, necessarily, at least from what I've seen at high elo. But, you know, sitting on a Bramble is normally just a good choice. And that's the only thing Bramble builds into, right? So, I mean, what else are you gonna build? I don't know, it seems weird to me because it doesn't really feel like the alternatives are there to like justify these stuffs. And rune changes, Inspiration Pathfinder getting 1% move speed buff. We'd like Pathfinder to keep up with the mastermind of enterprising junglers. I think pretty, you know, solid idea. I think Doom's already taking Pathfinder quite a lot on his jungle pages, especially since the mastermind rework. I think he's been taking a lot less. But maybe it's still a bit off the map and people aren't really thinking about it that much. I think it's a solid rune. If you're a jungler, give it a try for sure. And there's the free-to-play champion rotation. So that is patch 2.3c, a bit of a small one. Biggest winners, definitely Leona. Biggest loser, I mean, there's quite a few losers to be honest. The most interesting one I think is Braum. Interesting to see how the Braum changes affect him. Yeah, obviously not that big a patch. This is the last one of the 2.3 cycle. We're obviously waiting for the big patch 2.4 on July 28th. That'll be really exciting. A lot of dev diaries and stuff coming out in the next few weeks. I'll probably be doing reaction videos. You know, I'll watch them on stream and then I'll put out my reactions. Probably on YouTube as well, so you guys can stay tuned for that. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave it a like. It really helps out the channel. And if you are interested in those dev diaries, you know, I've been doing some more competitive analysis recently, long form, in-depth competitive analysis. Also got you know, those highlight videos coming out from my stream. Make sure to leave the, you know, subscribe to the channel. Putting out content every day, new video every single day. And yeah, thank you guys very much for checking this out. Hope you're now equipped with the knowledge to destroy your games on patch 2.3c. Although, you know, it's a pretty small patch, not a crazy amount to learn. Either way, thank you guys very much for checking this video out. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.